So Mark Hamill, okay, this is Luke Skywalker. At that time, his career wasn't as great as it is now, which I'm really glad it's back. But back in that era, he was, well, I shouldn't say that, but Wing Commander 5 was a video game. And he was a participant wearing the golf ball suit and, you know, being a character within the video game. So he comes walking onto our set. Okay, you can imagine, this is a guy that's part of the movie that got me to where I wanted to be.
Yeah,
this so there's a direct connection with this kid. He's a cool guy. Mark Hamill walks in, and I'm like, holy shit, it's Mark Hamill. And they're talking, he's talking to Jim, and I can hear him like, I know what he wants.
Your knees didn't buckle,
No,
right?
I was shaking, like I was freaking out. So I didn't want it.
I want to welcome Joe Barnes to our studio.
Great to be here, thanks.
You actually helped us with our lighting and our cameras and
I did.
all the stuff that we have in this stuff, which I've never seen before and never heard of before.
Yes, I did.
Joe, how did you get into this industry?
Okay, so I was 11 years old in 1977, and I saw a movie called Star Wars: A New Hope. Before that, I was similar to typical kids of that age group, police officer, fireman, lawyer. After I saw that movie, I knew what I wanted to do. I walked out of that movie knowing I wanted to be involved in the motion picture industry. I just had a calling. It was like I saw it, and it was magical to me, and I thought, I want to create something like that the rest of my life. Because it touched me. It did. It was, in a weird way, cinematically, and in the storyline and everything else.
So it was like the perception of you were just seeing like the magic?
Yeah. It took me to a place I hadn't been, you know what I mean? It was like, I've seen a lot of movies prior to that, of course, but that movie grabbed me and took me weird places just to see how big you could make things, you know, and how the imagination can be stretched to those limits.
So were you looking at, so you weren't thinking about the lightsaber and stuff, you were thinking about,
Exactly.
you were actually thinking about the
Honestly,
visual.
I was thinking about the exploding X-Wings and stuff. That part was rad. You know what I mean? I thought it was cool. And then I learned later that there are no explosions in space, which kind of pissed me off. Because at that age, I was good with it. But then when I learned, oh, there's no explosions in space because there's no oxygen and sound, and I was kind of bummed out about that, but it was still cool. But I thought I'd be a model maker and make, you know, models and green screen and exploding things because I saw the documentary on how they did it.
Yeah.
And I was intrigued by the motion capture cameras and the blue screen and how they built the models and blew them up literally. So I thought that was really cool.
So that was like really the peak for like a really like the starting point. You said like, wow, this was magical, and I want to do something connected with this one day.
Yeah, I was driven to that career at that point, and ever since then, I started shooting photography first because that's what I had access to.
Photography is in just like stills, or is it, so just
Stills,
like
just photography.
just people, like
Yeah, family mostly, and then places. Everywhere I went, I'd shoot something. I had a 110 camera, which no one knows what that is. I'm not aging myself.
What's a 110?
I'm really old.
What's a 110?
Shit, I just dated myself. It's an old camera. The frame is smaller than 16 millimeter. It's a thin camera. It was a cartridge film that you'd put in it. And that was what they called it, I believe. It's just a 110, and then I moved to Polaroid.
So with the 110, okay, so
it's just a cartridge of negative film that you'd stick into a camera body, and you'd wind it and then take a picture, and then you'd have to get it processed.
So how did you figure out this is the first camera you're going to buy?
It was the only one my parents had.
Oh, okay. So you were just taking your parents' thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
so
I owned it. I mean, I took it. I stole it. Okay, I stole it. But they were cool with it because I was always the photographer. The bad news is there's very little record of my existence on the planet. I'm always the guy taking the photos. So oftentimes someone would say, hey, here, no, I'll take the picture. You get in. And I'd show them, here, do this. And I'd get in. I'd be smiling, but it'd be out of focus or, you know. So
you're literally like just going around. You start taking pictures of like just normal stuff and going to get your negatives developed at the
Right. Back then it was called Save On.
Okay, so you just get your.
I shouldn't keep aging myself like that, but okay. Sorry. Rite Aid. I went to Rite Aid and CVS.
So you're getting your pictures done and you're getting it developed, and is there anything specific you're taking pictures of? Like, is it?
It was everything. Like, it's weird, but it was everything I saw. I try to describe this to some people, but some artists use a brush and paint.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with details and lighting early on in life because I saw the dramatic changes that would occur. And it was also through experimentation. Mostly that part of my Lindsay career when I went to Polaroid, it was because it was instant. You know what I mean? I would see
Polaroid's the ones where you're going like
shake it like a Polaroid picture. They wrote, I guess there's a song about that once. most people, again, I'm dating myself because I don't even know if people know what Polaroid is anymore.
Yeah. No, I was just coming into existence then.
Right. Oh, great. Awesome. That's great news. But because of the results were instant, I could see, I need to adjust it. I wasn't happy. Oh, this isn't wrong. Okay, stand this way. And I started to learn about never shoot at noon because people would have raccoon eyes. And I just learned a lot of things that how to make people look better. Longer lens helps. Things, I just started to put things together on what looked good. I would take pictures of like a grasshopper or a tree because I thought it looked cool. It's just weird. I have way too many photos. And now that there's digital age, it's a disaster.
So like when you're doing the Polaroids, are you like filling up your wall with like all these bunch of little pictures and stuff? Is that what you're doing? Like you're literally canvassing a wall and comparing?
Yeah.
Is that how you're doing it?
A lot of them were in my room, and then a lot of them went in photo albums, and some of them just would get thrown away if I didn't like them. Those are the ones I got from Rite Aid. You go through, and later in college I learned that, and it was really cool because it helped me relax. But when we're going to jump back, don't worry. I want to go forward for a minute. Yeah. But I took photojournalism, and the instructor said, because we're still talking film, digital wasn't around yet. Oh, fuck, I'm sorry, aged myself again. But digital was really great at that point. No, just kidding. But it was 35 millimeter film. It was either 24 frames or 36 frames in a roll, and we processed it ourselves. But he had said something great to me where if you get one or two great shots out of one roll of 36 exposure film, you're doing great. So that took the pressure off me a lot because prior to that, you expect 30 out of 36 to be awesome. That would be a good ratio, but that helped me a lot with my experimentation because I was able to learn more and focus on just getting one or two good ones.
So just getting a lot wrong and getting a few right? That's really what it is of how you're trying to perfect things.
Yeah, and those right ones were the ones that ended up on the wall, and the ones that weren't so right ended up in a photo album or the garbage.
But you weren't going to school or anything for this, right? Like this is you just trial and error.
Yeah, early on, yeah.
And you're just trying to figure out like, oh, okay, well this works, this doesn't work, and I'm just playing around with it. And this is, so do you think at this moment that this is a hobby, or do you think that this is am I turning into something? Because you really are good, like your creativity and what we see, and you're playing around the cameras and you're zooming in and zooming out and talking about pulls and focuses and ups and downs and this tripod, that tripod is pretty magical.
Oh,
and like, I don't know what you're talking about when you're doing it, but it really is for me. When I have everybody here taking notes of what you're saying, is really because it's impressive. Like it really is impressive to me. Like you don't see that passion in a lot of people. So at that age, did you know where you were going? Like, did you say that I'm still going towards this goal of being like what you were when you were watching the Star Wars thing?
Right. I think the best way to explain is that this brought me joy. You know what I mean? I enjoyed it, taking photographs because it made me happy. You know what I mean? Yeah. I thought of it as something I could continue to learn with. And that's what kind of kept me in it, because you could always find something different and take something, and I always change angles. That was my thing. Is most people stand and it's always from their height, and they pretty horizontal point of view. But I would always get low and tilt and climb up stuff and just do weird angles. Yeah. And I thought that was fun. I always continued to learn based on a lot of failures, but it was kind of cool that way, I guess. Frustrating and expensive for a young guy in the 70s and 80s. Yeah. It aged myself again. I promised myself I wouldn't do that. So yeah, that was when I decided at that age, at 11, that I wanted to go into that industry. Then I continued my education through high school.
But you were really angling it still at the the movie industry, right? Like you were still angling at the movie industry, like
yeah.
And then by going through high school, like you knew that I'm still.
Oh yeah.
My mind is still on that target, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That's where I always saw myself. I mean, at that point in school, I wasn't making any moves to that career because I was focused on education, like most kids would be, just trying to get through it. Yeah. I was a good and bad student all through my history of education. Some semesters I was, a D student, and I think mostly because I was bored, maybe. Yeah. And then some semesters I'd be like a 3.7, 3.8.
So like, did school try to influence you away from this? Like, like you see other kids saying, hey, I'm going to be a policeman, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be an astronaut. Like, did it try to take you away from that, or you still had your mind focused on that?
Yeah, no, I was laser driven, I think. I don't think, and if they did, I didn't hear it. I was focused on getting through each grade because I did want to get out, at some point. But yeah, high school was really great for me. I had a good time. I learned a lot. I took education serious in high school.
Did your parents try to push you in a direction?
No, never. That's what I loved. I come from two very creative parents, which I think helped a little bit. But my dad was a puppeteer, choreographer, bookkeeper also. That's what he did for the income part. But yeah, he did a show called Dusty's Treehouse, which is a local affiliate show on CBS back in the day.
He did a show, and that was a puppeteering show?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was in the 70s.
So did you get to go and see the sets and stuff like, while he was there?
Oh, yeah.
So was that a part of the influence that you were?
What's funny is at that age, this is prior to 1977 because I was way younger, but I was more intrigued by the puppetry work, you know what I mean, and the voices and stuff like that. That was cool. But the lighting and the cameras didn't even affect me at that age. It was weird. I wasn't connected to that at that point. I was just more mesmerized by the puppets because I was a little guy, like 4 years old, 5 years old.
Yeah.
So
okay, so you're learning your stuff, and
my mom was an actress because I can't.
Was?
Yeah, I can't leave her out because she'll get pissed if she sees it. I'm just kidding.
So she was an actress.
Yeah, she did a lot of stage. Actually, oh gosh, here we go. This story. I have to tell you this one because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my mom's choice. Yeah. She got booked to play Dolly in Hello Dolly. Big deal on Broadway. Huge, right? And she was pregnant. Wow. So she had a choice to make. So she could either see you later or don't do the career thing. And she decided to keep me here. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's neat, right? So I bought her a star.
So I think that the energy was going inside you to actually bring out the camera work inside you or the industry.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird that she made that decision. And, you know, she stands by it because, you know, she says the best decision she ever made. But I bought her, you know, you could purchase stars. I bought her a star called From Dolly to Mommy. So she actually has a star in the universe. There's coordinates and everything, you know. People don't buy stars anymore, but it was a thing. Yeah. I don't think we really own it.
Yeah. it's nice on the website.
Yeah, you got to pay a lot of money for a piece of paper, basically, but it's still a cool idea.
So did you ever want to get, like, in front of the camera? Like, did you ever try to get in front of the camera to, I don't know.
There's a reason I chose my career behind the camera. When I was 6 or 7 years old, maybe eight. My parents were creative people, puppeteer, actor. Dad was a choreographer, also an actor. Mom was an actress, a lot of stage, some TV, some commercials, but she loved the stage. So she was involved, and my father was involved with a theater group called the Company Theater in LA. And this was the coolest group of people that had come together from New York and everywhere, and they created this theater group called the Company Theater. It was on La Cienega, and they created plays. And there was a King Lear rendition, and I call it the hippie rendition because it was weird as fuck, okay? It was like weird shit was going on, and it was a modern era deal with the military outfits and things like that. And my only job in that play as a kid actor that I was thrown into because I was the only kid that was in that environment because my parents would bring me every time they had to act because I didn't have a babysitter, so I'd either sit in the car in Hollywood, which was safe back then, believe it or not. This is the 70s. Or I'd be like sitting in the back of the house drinking tea all night or whatever because I had nothing else to do. Yeah. So they cast me for a role. At the end, King Lear's trying to break back into his castle, and he's screaming, pounding on the castle walls. Yeah. And my job as a little kid, and it's a very symbolic moment, is to kill him with a gun. Yeah. I'm supposed to shoot King Lear. Lights go out, applause, applause, applause. People go home and smoke more weed because you have to remember it's the 70s.
That's right.
And the people that...
Fun times.
Right, exactly. So one night, I'd go and I'm like, okay, it's almost time. I'm listening. I'm here. Okay, shit, it's my cue coming up. So I have to go shoot this guy, and then I go home. But I was happy to go home because it's a school night. I want to go home. Yeah. So I go kill the King Lear, and I get to go home. So I go click, and the thing didn't go off. The gun didn't go off. The blanks weren't set. Something went wrong somewhere. I don't know. Click, and all I could think at that time is, shit, there's an audience. They're going to be confused as hell if I don't kill that guy. So I'm like...
Is this like a metal gun or this is a plastic gun?
No, it's a metal, it's a prop gun.
It's a prop, okay.
But it's loaded with blanks, but I don't know if the prop guy forgot the blanks or there's a malfunction or I don't have any idea. Yeah. But I'm going click, 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 click. And the audience is probably going, this is fucking weird, right? So I'm like, I got a King Lear's got to die. So I go running across the set and I start beating on this actor, beating on this microphone. No, I was beating on this actor and with the gun, like, you know, and I'm trying not to kill him because it's like, but I'm freaking out, right? Because I know I have to kill this guy, but I'm like, I don't know how to act fight. You know, I'm like, no one taught me how to do stunts. So I'm literally hitting him with my gun and the guy's like, oh. And he falls down the freaking stairs and it's like this big dramatic thing and lights go out. And I'm like, holy shit, I think I killed him. I think he's dead. And he's like, no, he gets up. And he's like, good job, man. Oh, my God, good job. Because he heard the click, click, click. And he was pounding on the walls going, fuck, what's he going to do? And he's like, you know, he's trying to figure it out, too. I get back and I'm like, fuck. You know, I'm pissed off. I'm like, this is bullshit. And every actor of that play came up and grabbed me and said, you have the moment of your pinnacle. This is like what we live for, man. You did it. And I'm like, fuck you. No, that sucked. You know, they all thought it was the best thing ever. They said, this is great. The audience was, and everyone's clapping, and like the audience was stoked. It was a brutal murder. And I guess they liked it because, you know, they smoked a lot of weed back then. Yeah. But I left that going, never
again.
Never again.
Never again.
I'm done.
Behind the camera.
Yeah. So I did a few more because that wasn't the last night. So from then on out, the prop guy explained to me, like, if that happens again, pull the hammer back and try to shoot it another way. Yeah. So I never had to kill him physically again, which was both of us, the actor who played Lear and me, were both very happy because he had injuries.
At least you didn't jump on him with your elbow and keep pounding the poor guy.
Honestly, I beat the shit out. As much as an 8-year-old kid can beat the shit out of an old man, I did everything I could. And he was doing great, but I'm like, if you die, I can stop beating on you. That's what I'm thinking. But he's doing the thing where he's like, I'm like, die. I'm like, stop hitting you, you know? And then when he went down the stairs, which I don't think was on purpose, by the way, because it was like, and I'm like, oh boy. So I'm thinking I thought I really knocked him out. I thought I did. And then when the lights went out, audience was like, oh yeah, that was awesome. Yeah. I ran, man. I ran off that stage.
Never came back.
That was fun. But that was the point where I knew that the weird hippies on ladders doing the lighting and all that stuff was where I wanted to be. I didn't want to be the guy that had to kill anybody with a prop gun. I was done. But it was fun. I look back at it and have joy, but at that moment, it was terrifying because I felt responsible for the whole thing, you know? Wow. But they all loved it. All the actors thought that was like, that's why we live for this, man. That's why we do it. I'm like, you guys are lame. This is weird.
So, okay, so you really learned this. So at what point did you say that I'm going to take this serious? Because you start doing commercials, and I've seen the commercials that you've done. And you've done some horse racing stuff, and like you've done some pretty cool stuff. So where does it start becoming like a reality for you? Like this thing is like something serious that you're going to take serious. I mean, like this is a job.
Okay.
When does that kick in?
The job part? Okay, so after high school, I wanted to make income. That was my focus at that point because it's just something that you have to do at, you know, you're a late teenager, 18, 19 years old, and you want to make money to go party with your friends and hang out and buy cars or whatever. So I worked in several areas, construction. I also worked at an air conditioning delivery place, which was a turning point because I was delivering air conditioners. And one day, and it was hot in summer, and I was on my own a lot, you know, taking these big things off the truck, taking it up to a residence on a dolly, and killing myself at a young age.
Yeah, so you're doing something that you don't want to do.
Yeah, exactly. I was miserable every day. It sucked. And one day, it was like a pile of bricks hit me, and it was like, what am I doing? So I decided at that point, I got to go back to school because I wanted to learn more about the industry itself and have like more of a collegiate education that would give me more information than I had gathered on my own.
Yeah.
So I went to LA Valley College and studied under, I took all their cinema classes and also all their TV broadcasts that they offered under Dr. Timmons, who was a great instructor, but Joe DeCurso was an instructor there that was a major key influence in my life and how dedicated he was. And I've actually told him that later, like 20 years later. I called him and I had to say thanks to him because of the work ethic that he taught and the amount of information we got from those courses was amazing. So after that,
did this really like enhance your ability of what you thought you had as a youth? Like you had like some ability there, and now you've just upgraded your skill set to say, wow, this is why it works. This is where the lights on the shoulders and lights on your, and that's the stuff that you're picking up now.
Yeah. Well, I knew a lot of that, which was great because I had a percentage of that information already just on my own, understanding what lighting did, because that's really the key to imagery through a lens is lighting. So I had a broad understanding of it. But through the courses, and not just the actual practicums using equipment, but also looking at the history of film and filmmakers from the early days, even the 1900s, with the horse, the horse they had was a series of still cameras that the horse would run, and they had strings, and every string would be kicked by the horse and it would click the shutter of the camera.
Oh,
and that was one of the first films, and they do the flip book and the horse is running, and that's how they got that. It was just a series of cameras going down a line.
Interesting.
So, and then you have Citizen Kane and all those things they throw down your throat. But I loved it. That's one of my favorite films because what I've learned from that movie itself.
So you're learning all this stuff now. Does this, with all the skill set that you're having, now are you judging other people's work? Like now when you're watching something on TV, you go, hey, I could have done it like this, or I would have done a shot from this angle. Because even when you're in here and you're very creative, we were talking about cameras on Katana or trying to do something else and other production that we're talking about doing, but like you're very creative. But does that come now into when you're watching a movie or something, and now your judgment on how you would have done it? Because I presume that you're always overanalyzing.
You know what's funny about that is I don't judge it, but what I learn from it, the stuff I like, I'll learn from it. And there are things I don't like, but I don't necessarily judge it. But I do notice it. There are things that bother me specifically with lighting perhaps, or end editing. Like I'll see a shot, perhaps like a single, and they'll cut to a medium shot, and they'll come back to the single, and you can see there's a lighting difference between like a hair light on Julia Roberts versus like the 2 shot, which she didn't have her hair light there. So those things I catch, because continuity is one of those things that used to matter in film, and it is still in most cases, but I'm noticing a lot less of it in some of the movies we watch nowadays. But so I don't necessarily judge, because I understand like I've learned this, that you can't make everything perfect throughout a whole presentation of whatever it is. Even if it's a 30-second commercial or a 2-hour feature, it's not going to be perfect the whole way through. There's things that will screw you up, or you won't have enough money for, or you have to cheat, or you won't have the right personnel in there as far as cast, or stunts or anything. Like some things you just have to work around. So I know that, and knowing that, that's why it's hard to judge, because you look at things and you're like, yeah, okay, but you have to look at the overall story, and did it affect you positively, and did you enjoy it?
When you're seeing let's say like newscasters and all these guys, knowing the fact that a lot of this world is very fantasy, right? Like it's very fantasy. Does it make you trust it less? Like just trusting like what you're seeing. Like do you know that like when we put stuff on the table, or we're doing stuff, or we're putting it, and you realize it's cut, and then all of a sudden everybody's sitting there with dull faces when they were so happy. Like do you pay attention to that stuff too? Does that change your perception because you're always behind the camera?
No. What's funny? It's like I get it. It's an art form. It's like dancing or anything else. It's like in the green room during a play, these guys are back there drinking coffee and smoking cigarettes. They go out in there and they're Hamilton, So I understand it. It's a career, it's an art form, it's an income. There's a lot of facets to it. So understanding that I'm not really jaded. And for most part, there are a few people that I worked with that I was a little shocked as far as talent goes, where it's like they're a persona that you think they are, and they're really not that. And sometimes it's a pleasant surprise where they're kind of an a-hole, but you meet them and they're really awesome. Johnny Depp's one of those people I worked with on Transcendence, was a film that I worked on, and it was really fun. And everyone said, okay, look, when you're on set, don't make eye contact and all this stuff. And I'm like, what the hell? So he ended up to be such a nice guy, and he greeted me and was very pleasant, and really classy dude. So those are the experiences that are kind of nice to have, like where you have a perception and you're taught and told something, and then you meet them and they're really cool people. So he's a really good dude. Jim Cameron was another guy I was really lucky to work with. He beat the shit out of me for 6 weeks, 7 weeks, but we were friends the last couple of weeks. It was great.
I was just joking.
No, it was funny how it worked out. I was doing video assist. I chose a career of video assist because what video assist is, it's an image from the camera that goes to a monitor that the directors use, and sometimes producers will watch also, or creative people as far as stunts or effects, because they'll also see how that's working live. So you don't have to wait for the film to be processed and see it in dailies the next day. So I chose video assist because I wanted to see everything they were doing DP-wise, director-wise. I wanted to be right next to the director so I can see and hear everything. Yeah. So I thought that was the best education I can get, instead of when you're at a camera being a camera assistant or pulling focus, or you're there, that's your place. But you're not necessarily seeing everything. But if you're at the video assist monitor, you're literally seeing and hearing everything. Yeah. So it was a really fun career, and I enjoyed it. So we worked on Terminator 2 3D Battle Across Time, which was a Universal interactive attraction. Yeah. And I got really lucky, got the gig. And we were at Kaiser Steel Mill, which is a toxic, shut down steel plant in Blythe, which was nasty. It's a nasty place. So we were working there nights only, and it's like 100 degrees at night. The iron ore is in the air. It's so bad. It was nasty. Right. But Jim thought, this is a great post-nuclear World War III environment, and that's where he built the sets. Yeah. So we were working there, and pretty much daily, he would ask me, like, how did you even get this job? How did, why are you here? Why is it taking so long? It was just a constant barrage of messing with me. Yeah. And it wasn't, I don't think, from an evil place, but just like that's who he is, right? Yeah. And I think he always wants to see what people's limits are around him, but he demands the best out of everybody, which I totally respect, right? So every day I wanted to quit because I was like, I'd go home to my Blythe hotel at 6 a.m., iron ore in the nose and eyes and everything, smelling like smoke from the explosions, and just every morning I just wanted to go home like, I want to quit. And then I'm like, no, I can get through this. Take a shower in the muddy water that came out. They were cleaning the pipes, I guess, that fed Blythe's water supply, and the water was tan. So not only were you dirty, you'd come home to your hotel and you'd take a tan shower with tan water.
Wow.
So, and then you'd turn on the air conditioner and it'd get to about 90 degrees all day, and that's in the room. I mean, we're in motels. It's Blythe, right? Not to say that Blythe is a bad place. If you live there, it's cool. It's just very hot. And you have tan water. But besides that, every day I wanted to quit. Got through it, though. And then we came back to LA to do the green screen work in the studio, which was like Christmas morning, leaving that place and coming to a studio where we're getting there at 6 or 7 a.m. You know, we're able to go home afterwards. We're indoors. There's no iron ore up my nose, and things were great. But Jim is still treating me like, you know, a punk, you know, which whatever. But I respect him totally because he's a hardworking guy who gets in it. He's not a pointer director. He is in it, and very smart man. So anyway, this kind of ties into the Star Wars thing. Hold on. It's going to take a second. So, these stories get long.
This must be a big story about to come when you're taking a sip of water.
This is one of my favorite stories because it blew my mind, so I have to share it. Okay, so we're in the studio. I'm in a great mood because it's air conditioning. It's cool. Arnold's there. Everything's going on. Explosions. But it's indoors and it's LA. So I'm not in Blythe. I'm just happy. Blythe's okay. Don't worry. It's fine. Maybe to drive through. Anyway, so got that. I feel terrible. So Mark Hamill. Okay, this is Luke Skywalker.
Okay.
At that time, his career wasn't as great as it is now, which I'm really glad it's back. But back in that era, he was, well, I shouldn't say that, but Wing Commander 5 was a video game. Okay. Then he was a participant wearing the golf ball suit and, you know, being a character within the video game. So he comes walking onto our set. Okay, you can imagine, this is a guy that's part of the movie that got me to where I wanted to be.
Yeah,
there's a direct connection with this kid. He's a cool guy. Mark Hamill walks in and I'm like, holy shit, it's Mark Hamill. And he's talking to Jim, and I could hear him like, I know what he wants.
Your knees didn't buckle,
No,
right?
I was shaking. Like, I was freaking out. So I didn't want to say something because here's Jim. Because I was with Jim, like, video assist, like, for freaking, like, 4 weeks at this point. And we're always right here. And I'm hearing them talking. I'm just like, oh, my God, I want to say something so bad. So I'm listening. And he's, like, talking to Jim about, hey, what's going on? And I know what he wants. He wants to, you know, hey, Jim, you got anything going on for me? You know, which I understand. And they were talking very cordial. It was very nice. So he leaves, Mark Hamill leaves, and I'm like, oh. And I turn over to Jim, and I go, Jim. He's like, yeah. I go, it's Mark Hamill. He's like, yeah. I go, I love that guy in Corvette Summer. Which is, no offense to the producers of Corvette Summer, but that movie was pretty lame for Mark Hamill because it sucked. Yeah. I mean, as far as like compared to Star Wars, it was still a fun movie, right? It was that era.
Different level.
But what was also bad is he had his face ripped off in a motorcycle crash on the way to set in that movie too. So it was a very smart ass thing to say because most people would say, oh, I loved him in Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I didn't. I went right to Corvette Summer just to be kind of a smart ass because technically that's what I am.
To not show the vulnerability of how much you want to hug him.
Right. Plus I'm a smart ass in general and people know me, know that. So they oftentimes don't know when I'm joking. But anyway, when I said that, Jim looked at me and I'm like, oh shit, here it comes. He's going to verbally abuse me again and tell me what a punk I am and how dare I say such a rude thing. Yeah. He started laughing because he got the joke because he knew what Corvette Summer was. He knew that was a dark place and a weird sense of humor thing to say. Yeah. From that moment on, he was like my best buddy. He really embraced it. He embraced that part of me that I never really shared because I was always like just trying to get things done for him and doing my best work and making sure I didn't piss him off. Yeah. But then at the wrap party, which is probably the best part of the whole story, such a nice guy. I'm there with my wife who's pregnant and with my first son, Austin, and she's big. She's like 8.5 months. He comes over and sits down with us for like 40 minutes. Wow. And he talks about life and his family and his kid and everything else. I don't know if it was his kid. Go back for a second. Rewind. Yep. Say wow. Cut to him on wow. So he was talking to us about life things and the pregnancy. He felt her tummy and said it's a boy, just weird stuff. And it's a surreal moment because I'm looking at my wife and I go, man, if I would be totally getting laid if you were 8.5 months pregnant because I'm here with the director and I'm thinking this is
big
awesome.
Cheese. This is a big cheese.
Look at how cool I am. This guy's hanging out with us and I'm looking behind him and all the executive dudes are doing the thing where they're like, but they know they can't go, Jim, come on, let's go. We got to go kiss butt or whatever. So they know not to bug him, but I'm looking behind him and just watching these people be stressed out. Like, what is he doing with this guy? But it was like 40 minutes of just cool conversation, just fun,
Just being normal.
Yeah. So it was just fun. And it was like, wow. He's like, well, I got to go talk to these guys in suits and stuff. And I was like, cool, man. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. But what a nice guy to do that,
That's
you know?
cool. No, that's
yeah,
really cool.
that's why I love Jim. And he's really smart. And people that don't like him and don't get him will never like him or get him. But I totally do. He's a genius. The guy's smart and he's a great filmmaker.
Okay, so you're doing all this stuff now.
And he's passionate. Super passionate, more than me.
So you're doing all this stuff, and this is going to these parties. Everything's going great. Like, this is fantastic. So this is what's this? Where does this want to take you? Like, after seeing all this, do you want to keep going? Like,
yeah, I wanted to be Jim Cameron for a minute. You know? No, I mean, directing is a thing I like to do as well.
So now this is like where something sparks something else, right?
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden you say, okay, I like the camera work. It was great, but I want to direct. I want to be a part of that, because now obviously you're paying attention to what this guy's doing, literally like listening to their sounds. Like this is really taking you somewhere else now.
Yeah, because to me it was all about painting the picture visually. Yeah. And I think as a director, knowing your tools is also very helpful. And it's kind of how I guided my whole career, because I started out as a camera loader. And
what's a camera?
You load film into magazines.
This is actually like the 35 millimeter, right? Like
And so I loaded for a while for Cheers and a show called Dear John at Paramount. So and then I became a second assistant. A second assistant basically brings the gear to the first AC, who's the focus puller, puts the lenses on the camera, matte boxes, filters, zoom and focus for the operator.
And there's so much stuff involved in this, because when you're talking about, again, you're saying matte box and filter and zoom ring and whatever these things are, like, there's so much. You're just picking this up because you were starting there and you were doing the film loading, right?
Right. So every step that I went, I wanted to learn everything to get to a position of director of photography, because I felt I had to do it that way. A lot of people I went to school with left college and they had business cards that said, hey, Joe Blow, camera, cinematographer or director of photography or camera operator. I didn't do that because I knew that was bullshit. I was like,
you were learning raw.
Yeah, you don't learn. You're not a DP leaving college after 4 years. You're not. It takes years and years of experience, failures, successes, and watching other people's work and learning from it, which is how I do pretty much everything. I learn things from everything I do and I see, you know what I mean? And I understand where a lot of those things come from.
And I think there's a part of creativity there too, which I think, because you're a very creative guy.
Well, thanks.
So now, like, you're seeing people doing this, right? Because your son also is into, or trying to get.
I warned him not to. I'm like, don't do it, man. Go to the other side. Go to the dark side. Go to producing, directing.
And he's super intelligent. So, like,
he
was helping
smart.
us with the lighting when he was here. So, like, with his part, like, you're watching his part now, and it wasn't I don't think it's the part that you took, but it's a different.
Well, he has an advanced education because he's lived with me, right, his whole life. So, I mean, he's seen everything I've done, which is a huge help when he's my assistant, either as a gaffer or a camera assistant. Yeah. So I could look at him and he'll know. Both of my sons, actually, Austin and Matthew. Garrett's too young, but he's still in high school. But both of them have helped me. So, because I'm an independent owner operator, they call it. I have my own gear and I shoot many things, and I take them as my assistants because it's cost effective. They're cheap labor. It's great. So, but both of them are very talented and very creative. On set, oftentimes the communication is very minimal because you don't want to yell, hey, do this and do that. It's like we look at each other and I'm like that. He's like, they get it. So I see them experimenting. Austin is he's in a company called Camera Support, which is a great facility company. They provide cameras and equipment to most of the shows you see on television. Ran by a really great owner. There's great people. Lori and Gary are two great people that have really influenced me through my life, because I worked with Gary. I'm bouncing around. It's like Pulp Fiction, but with an interview. I worked with Gary, one of my first official video jobs, and he taught me so much. Such a great mentor, a great guy, but he took me under his wing, and I can only think the reason why is because he saw what I brought, right? Yeah. Like, and I was a hard worker, and I'd sweep floors all day, whatever. I had to do what I had to do. When I was employed, I could never sit because I felt like they're paying me to do something. If there's nothing to do, I have to find something to do. So he saw that, and he taught me everything. Pretty much.
Like, you're self-motivated.
Yeah. I learned more with him in a few months than I did at 4 years of college, because he's the real world. Gary was the real world. Bob Kaufman was the owner. And it was a company called Video One. Why they hired me? Because they saw me picking up trash when I was a PA for NBC and for working on, I think it was Sunset Beach or a soap opera. But again, when people hire me, if I'm not doing something that needs to be done, I'll find something to do because they're paying me. So I wanted to be productive. So I was walking around the compound, the staging area
Yeah.
where they have the honey wagons or the RVs for the talent or in the craft service and all that. There's some papers on the ground, so I was just cleaning up, and they had seen that.
Yeah.
They saw that. They've seen that. Grammatically, I don't know which is correct, but they saw me picking up trash.
It works here.
Cool. So I was picking up trash, and I guess Bob Kaufman talked to Jean Haney, who was my boss, and said, "Hey, can we hire him?" And she's like, "No." She wanted to keep me, but she said, "Of course." So they offered me a position, and of course I jumped at it because I went from production assistant, which is a great, it's a great position. A lot of people go that route and actually grow into producers, production managers, and great things. But I knew I needed to get to a world of camera, so I saw that as a street that would take me there. So Video One was a company that provided facilities and cameras to like Roseanne, Alf, Barbara Walters specials. I was able to play on all those shows and learn, and set up the cameras and the tripods for those guys for those things.
And that's a great experience, right? Like you're really getting like such hands-on.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe it wasn't being the guy who's sitting at the top, but you were learning from everybody and learning everything and seeing what's good and what's bad.
Yeah.
And that's really taking you on your journey. Like I thought that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, no, it's weird because I don't know at what point in my life I learned to observe and listen. I don't know what point that happened to me, but everything I did professionally, where I needed to get somewhere else to work, the place I was at currently, I would observe or listen to the department or the people that were doing the thing I wanted to do. Yeah. And not in a way that I was close or in their face or near them where it would be distraction, but I would, whenever I could get away from what I was doing, to be working near them, to absorb what they were doing was a huge blessing. And, I was taught so much through people that were openly sharing. That's why I share whatever I can with anybody who asks or cares to know. There are people out there that hide it and guard it. Yeah. And I don't understand that on some levels, and some levels I do. People are afraid of losing what they have, right? Yeah. But I feel I have to pay it forward in that way because of the people that help me. There's so many people that help me learn and help me grow. There's a camera operator, Parker Bartlett, that I was a camera assistant for. I followed him around carrying his camera cable for years, and he knew what I wanted to do. So,
and when you say holding his camera cable,
is okay with television. It's not radio transmitted. There's a wire that goes from the camera to the CCU control units. That also then translates to whatever recording device, right? Yeah. So it's called a camera system or camera utility. Okay. So we basically have a harness of cable. You might see it on live sports sometimes where the guy's running behind them with the cable and coiling it up. So we were working on a show, Dennis Miller show, the first one on KTLA. And he knew I wanted to be an operator really bad, but I would just watch him and see what he's doing, watch the monitors. When he was shooting, I'd watch the monitors, this watch.
And they was like, go away, man, go away. Go do your job.
No, I was right. My job was good. I was right behind him. That's where I was supposed to be. If I went away, he'd be pissed because I was supposed to be there. Like if I left, he would trip and fall on his face, right? So, but it was cool because towards the end, when it was inevitably going to be canceled, it shouldn't have been because it was a great show, but for whatever reason. But Parker, we shot music on every episode. There was always a band, at least 9 times out of 10. So one day, Parker handed me a camera for a music act and said, "Here you go. Go shoot it." And I was like, "Are we cool? Is the director going to be okay?" He's like, "Fuck, let's do it. Don't say anything." He put the headsets on me, and I went to the drum kit, and I'm doing this cool shit because I'd watched for a season of everything he did. So I mirrored everything. And it's like, and they're just like, "Oh, great, yeah. Go to 4. I think his camera is X camera, I think, but there's a handheld. So go to X. And I'm like, the tally light goes on. I'm like freaking peeing myself, sweating, going, "Oh shit!" And they go, "Okay, take C." And I'm like. I go to another shot, but I nailed it. Because I had studied him so much that I knew what to do.
You were primed and ready to go.
Yeah, but I was juiced, man. The adrenaline flow was freaking me out. I was shaking, but I guess I pulled it off because no one knew I had done it other than the people the directors and producers are often in a control room. The people that knew I did it were the people on set. Yeah. A couple of other utility guys, a couple other camera guys, rooting me on and being cool. But I got done. I had on the camera, the headsets. I'm like, "Here, dude, it's cool." But it was like the experience was wild because it was live. It was live to tape. Yeah. But it was like I didn't choke, and I was really stoked, and he was really happy. And I expressed to him like, "Yo, I did good because of you," and he couldn't believe it. He was like, "Wow, you did really good." But I was crapping myself the whole time for sure.
So like, you see the evolution of the equipment, right? So you've seen like the cameras go from the 35 millimeter to the Red Dragons or whatever it's called, or the Alexas or whatever those names are. But like even from people on phones, right? So is it like it's obviously not the equipment, it's the person who's actually holding the equipment and actually saying this is the lighting and this is the whatever. Because I think that there's some YouTube videos where guys are filming on their iPhone versus a guy holding a $100,000 red camera.
Sure. You know what's funny? Okay, there was a point in technology where the technology would win awards more than the story. I think when digital media first was coming out and they finally figured out how to shoot at 24 frames a second, and people would shoot these digital videos.
And what's 24 frames a second?
Okay, in film,
before you say it.
Yeah, in film, we shoot at 24 because that's what they found. The frame rate would be cool to capture sound, and it would sync up with the lips. So 24 frames, and in England it's 25. I don't know why. It's just weird, right?
Good old England.
Yeah, right? 25 frames a second's better. No, okay, 24. Anyway, video was typically shot at 30 frames a second.
Yeah.
Or 29.98, or nowadays there's a lot of, there's 60i, 60p. There's all these things. But regardless, as soon as, people would win independent film awards and all these things because, it looks so beautiful and so stunning and so amazing. And the imagery would win awards more than the story, right? It was like, it looks so beautiful, and people wouldn't even know what the story was about because there's the hair and the slow-mo and the freaking lighting was great, and they'd win these cool, oh, so beautiful. And that's nice in some ways, but I'm a story guy, you know what I mean? That era didn't last long. I think now people, like, that's why with cell phones or even if you go buy, the handy cam, or no one's going to do that anymore because cell phones are better than those, but the tools accessible to people now it's amazing because on an iPhone, you can shoot a film, you can shoot a feature. And the beauty of that is it's brought story back to what's important, and not format and not, oh my God, they use this lens here, they have whatever, anamorphic, this and that, and can't Reds or Lexus, all those things matter to some people, but it's not really needed. I think the story will drive everything, especially with the digital age and the YouTubes of the world and things like that, where people have created great content on a phone. Yeah. But story is kind of king again, I think, which is great. I think that's important because that's what I got into it for, was to tell stories. It wasn't about making pretty pictures are important, but it's not going to keep people involved. And I wanted to share with people, I wanted to have them experience something like I was touched during Star Wars. I know that sounds weird, but in a weird way. I wanted to touch people in an emotional way where they were connected to the film and taken to another place. And when it's story-based, that's how you get there. When it's beautiful, yeah, you can get lost in a painting for sure, but I'm just saying I think the story keeps people engaged more. Yeah. So, yeah, I think, that's the beauty. And when I was a kid, I couldn't shoot video because the VHS camcorders were like $2,000. This is back in the early 80s, Now for $2,000, you could have a full cine package for sure, I'm not going to mention brands but there's a way, like most kids can shoot a film now.
So like back to your equipment, is this why like people use the rental houses and rent stuff rather than owning stuff? Because is it because you say, I need this, or is it the fact that you're doing it for what's happening at that moment, right? Or what you need at the moment, or is it the fact that it's the change in technology to add to that? Okay, it's a two-way street because as owner operator, I own gear, right? But I highly recommend renting or leasing. Sorry. Yeah, I'm an owner. I think it was cool to buy what I have, and it's still valid. It still works great. But with the technology that changes, I think we're getting up to 6 and 8K readily now. I shoot everything in HD, 1920, 1080, because most things just get dumbed down to that anyway. 4K is great, but most people end up taking it down to regular HD anyway. I mean, regular broadcast TV is 720. So it's still not, on satellite or cable, yeah, you're getting 4K, but broadcast, I'm talking about like what the networks are required to broadcast. I like HD over 4K because you don't see as much, and that's a good thing. I think there's certain things you don't need to see because if you see everything, you'll see all the magic and all the tricks, and sometimes that'll separate you from the story because that suspension of disbelief gets screwed with, you know what I mean? So that's why I don't prefer 4K. I don't want to see every pore. You know what I mean? I don't need to see that. I just, that's my personal view. But the manufacturing industry, and this is why it's a two-way street, they'll upgrade something just to keep selling, right? Yes. Because if they don't, it's like having, a tire that goes 300,000 miles. Guess what? Firestone's out of business once they do that. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's not necessarily planned obsolescence, but the technology has to continue to grow to keep the industry alive as far as equipment goes. So that's why renting is always a better option.
if you could afford that, you know what I mean? So I like being an owner operator because it was a lot less paperwork and I didn't have to fill out insurance forms. So it was like, and it was all readily available. And I can, like, someone call me, I could be there 10 minutes later, you know what I mean? So I didn't have to deal with like going to a rental house and picking out what I needed and doing all that.
So somebody coming into this industry now, is this industry a harder industry to get into versus what it was when you had begun this and where you were doing and how life was? Is it a harder industry now than what it ever was? Or people don't understand it enough?
I think it's different. It's not hard. It's easier in a lot of ways, and I'll tell you why. Okay, so I got really lucky. I got, I guess, discovered like picking up garbage to get my first opportunities, and every opportunity I've had since then has been because of being in the right place, right time, or relationships, or someone heard of me through another word of mouth person that would say, "Hey, this guy's great," or whatever. You know, that's how it generally worked. I've recently created a resume, which I have not needed in 25 years, just because I was really blessed and lucky that a referral and friends would, "Hey, there's a show coming up, you know, call these guys," or, you know,
call Joe Bonds.
Or, yeah, right. Call Joe. Phone number. No, but, you know, word of mouth would help. Like, you have friends on set and they'd say, "Hey, Joe, guess what? There's a show coming up and call this guy. Here's the phone number, production guy." Cool. And you call them and say, "Hey, I'm an operator," or "I'm a camera assistant," or whatever. "Do you have openings?" And then you'd go in. I got on the Chevy Chase show. I actually turned down Home Improvement. Was bad idea. There's a opportunity. I had two opportunities that came to me, and one was called the Chevy Chase show, which was 4 days a week, union show, which meant medical insurance, which is good when you have kids. And then there's another show, Home Improvement, which is a sitcom which shoots, well, 1 day a week they shoot, but it's a 2 day a week deal where 1 day's, you know, they block and tape and like rehearse and whatever. So I took the Chevy Chase show thinking, oh, talk show, multi-year, this is going to go 20 years, kind of like the Jay Leno thing, you know? Yeah. It went like 13 weeks, but Home Improvement went 9 more years. So
it's a Vegas spin, spin.
Right. But I don't know why I brought that up. Why did I bring that up? I don't know why. Oh, referral maybe.
Yes.
Oh, right. So I go to, okay, this is me. I had just gotten married, and when I made this choice to go to the Chevy Chase show, I had a broken leg, which is hard to convince a producer that you're going to be a really good camera assistant with a broken leg, because you have to follow the cameras around with cables. So I go in there, and he's like, "What's up with your leg?" I'm on crutches. I'm like, "It's going to be fine by the time the show starts. I have 2 more weeks of this. We're good." And he's like, "You sure?" I'm like, yeah, we're good. And he's like, "Well, what shows have you done?" And my resume at that point, I just brought all my credentials with me, because they give you these little things you wear around your neck, which is a big pile of them. And I put it in front of him. And I said, "Oh, I did all those." And he's like,
"Oh, gold medals, huh?"
Yeah, because I didn't want to sit there and type up like, okay. And back then, I keep aging myself, but, you know, a computer was a word processor. That's what it was. And you type your resume up, and I'm like, you know, the dates and stuff. I was like, freaking just get all my, because I saved them all. Yeah. I just brought those and I put them on the table, because another camera assistant taught me that trick years earlier. And he saw them. He's like, "Okay, you're good." You know what I mean? Because of the experience. Yeah. So I was lucky to get that job, and really sad when it left, because Chevy was cool. And I got Christmas cards from him for a few years after that, like several years. And I don't know, I guess he got my address from the crew sheet, because we weren't buddies and he didn't know who the hell I was. But I got a Christmas card with his picture on it for several years later, which I thought was really cool. Wow. It's really weird. Yeah, it's like kind of weird. On the mantle, to have the Chevy Chase family on your mantle is really fun. But yeah, that was interesting. But yeah, that was a word of mouth thing. So I learned of that show, and I got an opportunity. 13 weeks of experience right there.
So yeah, it's an interesting field. Like, it's an interesting world. It's a world by itself, and I think that a lot of people, we just watch versus being behind the camera and seeing what it takes to go behind the scenes and make things happen.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I was getting at. Sorry, I didn't finish that story. Gosh, this is gonna suck to edit. Okay. Is it harder to get in the industry? Okay, so here's why it's different and more opportunities for people, I think. Because of the YouTube, digital landscapes, and you can get your stuff out. You know, you can put it on there, put it out in the world. You can shoot on an iPhone. So if you're really passionate and motivated, yeah, you're going to get your stuff out there and get opportunities. I think back in my era, it was a lot of luck, a lot of hard work. My personal view of my career was build it, learn it. Because as a director, when you get to that point, I wanted to know, okay, I want a 50 millimeter lens down here, but knowing all my tools, I'd be a better storyteller knowing how to capture that image. Because I think in every story that you see visually, the camera is a character. Yeah. It's so important how that camera tells that story. Because Citizen Kane, for a good example, in the beginning of that film, you can see that they're kind of a little bit higher angle, right? They're a little bit taller over him shooting down. And then as he gets bigger and bigger, the camera goes lower and lower and lower. Yeah. Greg Tolan was a director of photography for that film, and he cut holes in the floor so they can get lower than him and shoot Orson Welles bigger than life, because he's a huge guy when you shoot low. And then as his life progressed and things got crappy for him, the camera got taller and taller and taller, made him small again. That was also the first movie, I think, if I recall, to shoot a ceiling.
Wow.
Because when they get down, guess what? You can't show the lights in the muslin. They used to put muslin, or I guess a fabric they used to put over, and the sun would come in. You know, so they had to show ceiling. So I think that was also one of the first films that showed a ceiling. Greg Tolan, DP. Also split diopter lens. Very interesting. I don't know why I said all that, but there's a reason.
That's good enough. Well, Joe, I want to thank you very much.
There's not enough. I want to keep going. Let's go. Just kidding. No, I want to get that out.
I want to thank you very much for coming in, Joe, and sharing with us, and thank you very much for helping us with everything that we've been putting together.
Oh, sure. My pleasure.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Anything I could do. It's a great place, and you're a great guy. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you very much,
Thanks.
Joe.